What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grindline Podcast. You're listening to episode 282. I am your host, Greg. I am here tonight with Ryan. Just in case you're wondering, I'm literally laughing at the beginning of every episode because someone either says or does something stupid right before I hit record. So normally, if you're watching us on YouTube, you know that literally every episode, one of us is laughing at the beginning of the
Usually
episode
me.
because, and we're
Usually
muted.
me.
Yeah. And it's just because one of us literally says or does something stupid before we hit record. So yes, this time it was me. I had something stuck in my throat. Could not clear my throat, but it was
Sure.
fantastic. Ryan,
We'll go with that.
I have emerged from the woods after a week. I am
Proud of you.
refreshed. I got one of the best nights of sleep I ever got in my life the day after coming back from camping.
I was going to say you slept great in a tent. That's actually impressive.
No, this past weekend I was in a camper. The week before I was in a tent.
Oh, got it mixed up. Got it.
But I came home and literally passed out, slept for like a solid 8 hours without waking up. And it was like one of the best things of my entire life. I hope to
we're
do it
getting
again
old.
one day.
Old with kids when 8 hours is, something we brag about of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Enjoy it, young people and people without children that plan on having children.
Yeah. See these under the eyes. They don't go away for a very long time.
Part of mine are because my lights are directly above me. So it makes it look like I have shadows. They're not this bad. They're
you got
there. Yeah. Yeah. They're
That's
there, but
better.
they're not this
See?
bad.
Like this. I put my hat back on, just cover my whole face.
So, Ryan, how were you while I was gone?
Good. Pretty good. It's been busy as far as hockey stuff, which was weird, but it's also the first week and a half into free agency now, so also not surprising because you think back to last year and I think what we had thought it felt like Iserman was done after 3 days, and then here we are on July 9th, 2023, and there's a trade that took place. So it's still possible that could happen.
Iserman waits for all the podcasts to get posted, and then he says, "Hold my beer," and he makes another move.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened. So we're going to talk about it a little bit tonight. I think we're going to start with the 3v3 tournament that happened at the Belfour Center at underneath Little Caesars Arena. And then we're going to go into a little bit about Vladimir Tarasenko, who was the big acquisition. There was a move made before that. And then kind of what the rosters look like are shaping up to look like going into the season. Granted, there's not another move made, which there very well could be. To me, it still doesn't look complete the way the roster is right now.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens there. But I want to start first with the 3v3 tournament. I caught, maybe 45 minutes of it. I was, again, in a camper in the middle of the woods.
For how they had the rotations going for the 3-on-3.
Yeah. I was in a camper in the middle of the woods. The big things that stuck out to me, Nate Danielson, God, does this kid have a shot at making this team? Flying all over, scored like 12 seconds into his opening shift. And it just constant puck hound. And they made a really good point. I think it was Ken Cal that made a really good point, maybe, or Jakob Kindle, because he was on the broadcast too, which I thought was weird. I'm like, hey, I know that guy.
Didn't get past his hair.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
Yeah, it was impressive.
And it's all over the place. And what they said was that when the puck is taken from him or he loses the puck, instead of just turning around and giving up, he goes after it. He's like a dog on the puck, which is fantastic to see. You can tell he really wants to make the team.
Well, and that's that description of what he has been doing or did in this in particular 3-on-3 tournament. That's what they hounded him on and what they had talked about with him this past season. They knew that he already had a decent two-way game. And that's, I think, what helped propel him so high up in the draft in the first round. But one thing I remember that being talked about last year was the way that he focused in on that, especially to help his defensive game to then push his offensive game because he had a breakout year offensively. I mean, it's not really a surprise that he did because part of it helped that he got traded to a team that actually, did suck, which was crazy how that works out. But the emphasis that Iserman and for that matter, Lalone have been putting on a two-way player, especially from the center position, that helps just resonate through the organization at that point. And he showed it again.
Yeah, I think that's also one thing Detroit could use. Now, I think when they bring him in, they'll probably Dylan Larkin him and start him on the wing.
Sure.
But I think historically, recently, we have had too many guys let a puck go to a corner and then give up on it, turn around and just skate the other way or go off for a change and not be tenacious in a corner. There have been a lot of people who have been described as soft in the corners. They
Mhm.
don't go in, they don't battle. That's what you lose in a guy like David Perron. You lose that corner battle, you lose that transition, and you lose coming out of it with the puck. And that's something that, again, Nate is striving to do. And he looks really good doing it.
He's
I
a
think
big
that's
boy.
the big thing. It's not that he's just trying to do it and failing because he's small. Right now, Nate is listed on Elite Prospects at 6'2, 187. And by the end of the summer, I don't think he's going to grow any taller, but 6'2 is a good height. Maybe he gets to, by the end of summer, 195.
I'm not sure if I buy the 187. Is that a recent update?
They don't put the date that their stuff was updated on. But I would say if he's 6'2, 195 by the time preseason comes around, I mean, that's a big boy who's not going to be pushed off the puck very easily.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people in general, at least in the groups that we're chatting in, they make that direct comparison to Dylan Larkin because he's built in a similar fashion, but he's got the wheels to back it up, the sneaky shot, and now he's showing that two-way forward game and he's being a hound on the puck. That's what you would hope for and expect, really.
Yeah, so I say get him in on the wing, let him get comfortable, get his legs underneath him, and then slowly transition him to center. I think out of, and people are saying, well, Marco Casper's ahead of him on the depth chart.
Possible.
He's making a really big case though. He's making a really big case to push.
But you know what? If it's Casper, I'm just as happy. I know that
Sure.
Mazer, I think they mentioned him, Mazer, Danielson, and there's somebody else. I remember Cleary talking about it. There's guys that just stood out to them in particular that have come through Grand Rapids. And when we were talking to Ben Watson a couple weeks back, like he highlighted several of those guys as well, to include Danielson. Like he is a guy that they literally threw into the fire as Grand Rapids is going in and making a huge playoff, going through their playoffs, excuse me. And you could see the growing pains, but at the same time, they didn't be like, okay, sorry, that's too much for you. They kept putting him in there to see what he could do at that early stage. And it's no surprise that they would do that based on what we even saw in the preseason last year, because I think we all had the thought of, oh, this might be a Larkin or a Raymond situation here for us. But alas, he went down. So I'm pumped for him and what could potentially be coming down the line from him. If he makes the roster, great. If not, guess what? He's in Grand Rapids and he gets to learn there, and which is just as well. And then I just hope that it's a Mazer or Casper type player that could potentially make it. You posted that as I finished my comment, as I after I just mentioned it. But yeah, you posted in the chat here, Cleary on guys that have a shot to make it. First name he brought up, Nate Danielson, followed by Casper and Mazer. So guys that we've been gushing over, for lack of better words, the last year plus. The way that things are set up right now makes it possible that that could happen.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we go over the roster the way it looks now. Again, it looks like Steve didn't save spots for prospects, but I think he made it really easy for them to push someone out or
Yep.
force him to do something. So the next big piece of news now, what happened first was the Detroit Red Wings traded Robbie Fabbri in a conditional fourth round pick in the 2025 draft. I didn't grab the condition on the pick, and now Cap Friendly is gone. So I don't know the condition on the pick right
Let's see
now.
if, well, hold on. Puckpedia might have it.
You look, Ryan. But they
I'll
traded
dig.
him, the conditional fourth round pick in the 2025 draft to the Anaheim Ducks. They received goaltender Gage Alexander, non consequential. He's going to probably go to Toledo to play. Stats are not fantastic. Size is good, stats are not. So,
Dude, I'm telling you, Puckpedia has already upped their game because you can find it quickly. They've got it, all the info listed on the team page. You can click all trades. Then you can actually go into the trade details. And on here, the fourth round pick condition, Anaheim will receive the earlier of Detroit's own fourth round pick in 2025 or Boston's fourth round pick in 2025.
whichever one comes, well, it'll be ours. I'm not, don't think we're beating Boston in, well, 2025. Yeah. I don't think
Yeah,
we're
next,
beating Boston this season.
yeah,
So
you never know.
you never know, but I'm going to say it's probably going to be Boston's fourth round. Anyway, it's a fourth round pick. Who cares? That's what they're giving them. So that freed up some money. And then the Red Wings went and signed, and this was huge because I'm like, as soon as I hit post on the last episode and
Yeah.
people are listening to it, like 5 minutes later, they go and sign Vladimir Tarasenko. And this was the one thing where you're like, Steve still got something left to do. He's still got something to do because this doesn't look great. He didn't fill the other top six forward spot. And this is how he did it. Now, I'm going to put up the war chart, the microstats war chart up on the YouTube channel if you're not watching there. Vladimir Tarasenko had an EV offensive war of 83, but an EV defensive war of 1%. This is a guy who is all offense on the ice. You get him the puck, he shoots the puck goes in the net. 87%
Could have made it
on
into a
goals,
song right there, the way you said that.
44% on chances, which means he doesn't shoot as much as he probably should. He should be shooting more. 76% on shots, 60% on in zone shots, 84 on rush. If you look at his only red stats are like in zone shot assists, which he's in the bottom 25%. High danger passes, bottom 25%. Zone exits, 29%. But his offensive shots are all blue. His skating speed is low. That's the other part. But his finishing is high, and that's
Which
what you
blows
needed in the
my
top
mind
six.
because have you seen his legs?
Yeah, the
Oh,
dude's as Christian Fisher said, he's a
fucking
big,
tank, man.
thick boy. I think he
Yeah.
said, but his finishing is 83, and that's what you really want out of Vladimir Tarasenko. You want a guy who's going to fly down the ice, get the puck, and put it in the net. That's offense that you are replacing by moving out a guy like even Shane Gostisbehere on the back end. You're replacing some of that offense. You're replacing the offense that is missed by Daniel Sprong. You're replacing some of the offense that even Robbie Fabbri provided last season.
Yep.
In a Vladimir Tarasenko, his interview, his press conference, or whatever you want to call it, was really good. He seems really happy to be here. He gets 2 years, and that's just stability for him and his family. And he gets to play with players he's familiar with. So, gut reaction on the Tarasenko signing.
Loved it. There was the expectation that Perron was gone. You bring in a guy like this, he likely makes up for everything that Perron was going to give you, and then maybe possibly a little bit more. You know that he's going to slot into your top six. He can easily slot into either of your power play units, and you're not going to lose a thing offensively. And that I think is huge. So to me, you could not go wrong. And the fact that it was a 2-year deal at less than what Perron was making last season when he was young, and Tarasenko's a few years younger, I think that's an absolute win, and it helps you tremendously.
So I went digging a little bit into his stats, and I found some really interesting stuff. So last season in Florida, he had 19 games played, 6 goals, 8 assists for 14 points in all strength. That's even strength, power play, shorthanded. If you look at 2023-24 in Ottawa, he had 57 games played, 17 goals, 24 assists for 41 points. So it's 55 points last season total. The season before that total, he had, oh no, yeah, it is. That's 55 points in 76 games. The season before that, he was in St. Louis and New York, total 69 games played, 18 goals, 32 assists for 50 points. If you look at his 5-on-5, last season, 17 of his goals were 5-on-5 goals, 22 of his assists, so 39 of his 55 points were at 5-on-5 last season,
And
which
I think that's going to be
good.
Crucial for Detroit.
Yeah, we needed more 5-on-5 help. After our power play kept clicking, that was driving the points. When that pulled back, we lost games. Yeah. So that's really going, that 5-on-5 offense is going to help. But what I found really interesting is even though his defensive WAR is low, his Corsi for percentages are rather high. Last season in Florida, his 5-on-5 Corsi was a 51.9 and his Fenwick was a 50. So that's 51.9% of the time when he is on the ice, the team controls the puck. I mean, it was a 49 in Ottawa. That was a dumpster fire team. And it was a 49% still in Ottawa for a total of 49.6 at 5-on-5 for Corsi 4. When Tarasenko is on the ice, even though he has a low defensive WAR percentage, the team still has the puck more often than not normally.
And I tell you what, if he's slotting in on your second line and the way you've got it set up, and I know you're going to get into it with Confer and Kane potentially, that's huge because we know that Confer can go get the puck and he's great with it. We know that Patrick Kane, once he gets a hold of the puck, good luck trying to get away from him. More often than not, you're not going to. So now you throw a Tarasenko into the mix. And you hope, ideally, they can play a little bit of keep away. But also, like we mentioned, with him being essentially the quote unquote replacement for Perron, now you've got a guy in Confer and Tarasenko that can go into the dirty areas, go get that puck, and then it frees up a guy like Kane, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. But just
Yeah,
think of it though. If you were to say put DeBrincat back down with Comfer and Kane, that's another great power line potentially, or flip Kane up. But Tarasenko, Larkin, and Raymond, that's a powerful trio in my opinion as well.
I did mention it was a 2-year contract. It is $4.75 million
Hmm.
each year. That is actually less than he made in Ottawa. Ottawa, he was signed to a $5 million deal. And then before that, with the Blues, he was signed to a $7.5 million deal. So his money keeps going down. He is 32 years old. So that is, I mean, there's an age thing there, but it doesn't seem like Tarasenko has fallen off a cliff. And in fact, he rebounded when he went from Ottawa to Florida.
Apologies, I missed. So him and Perron actually came in with the exact same contract from when Perron joined Detroit at 34 years old. So 2 years younger, same contract, hopefully a better production.
And he's listed at 6 foot, 225 pounds. So again, he is a big boy.
Brick
He is not
shithouse.
easy to play against. And that is, I think, one thing that Christian Fischer said is that he's, like he said, he's a thick, thick boy. He is hard on the puck. He is not afraid to make contact. And he's, again, I think the defensive war is a little bit deceiving in the fact that, again, he's hard to play against.
Yeah.
Now, he's maybe not a puck protector, and maybe he's not thrown out there in the defensive situations. Maybe we've seen Lalonde's system up the defensive game in guys like even Patrick Kane coming off hip surgery, but up the defensive game in who has been historically touted as a non-defensive player, and Alex DeBrincat got better last season defensively under Lalonde.
Yeah.
So there could
We
be a
talked
little bit
about
of
that
shift there.
and
Yeah.
how when those guys were doing those things, what it did for that team as a whole.
Yeah, it's again part of the team game is playing defense. So the Vladimir Tarasenko signing, if any of you saw my 5 minute major from out in the woods that I released while I was camping, walking down a trail, it was requested by people on Discord, so I did it. You can go back and watch my initial reactions. But I think
Greg,
that
the man of the people.
it's yeah, we're a pod for the people, but it you saw Steve Eiserman up the defensive core of the team in bringing in a guy like Gustafson, bringing in a guy like Tyler Mott, who is a hound on the puck and is very fast and his defense is his game. To be able to bring in a guy like Tarasenko, who maybe doesn't play so much defense, and be able to deploy him correctly.
Yeah, and what's nice to that point that you made with Amat, but they also brought back a Christian Fisher. They've hopefully we get a full season of a healthy Michael Rasmussen. Like you've almost got a
That's a
good
huge one.
yes, and we saw how the team plays when he's healthy versus when he's not healthy. So now you've got almost a split between your top six and your bottom six. Like you know that your offense is probably going to be driven by that top six, but you know, depending on what your third line looks like, I mean, to me, it'd be crazy not to have Rasmussen, Kopp, and Fisher back together again. Whether that's your third line or your fourth line, I really don't care because they were a matchup nightmare for most teams. And guess what? They were putting the puck in the net for several games toward the end of the year. They were probably one of the best lines that Detroit had because they could skate well and also piss you the hell off. So, but then still got guys that we haven't even talked about, and Johnny Burgers, who we still need a contract with, who ironically enough isn't going to arbitration. Kind of surprised me by that one. And then Joe Valeno, who is going to arbitration. So there's a lot of good two-way forwards in that bottom half of the lineup that I think sort of offsets what you're looking for with a Patrick Kane and a Tarasenko and even a DeBrincat for that matter on what they kind of bring to you defensively.
Yeah, you're hoping that bottom six gives the top six a little bit more wiggle room, more
Yeah.
freedom to get, like I said, a little bit better deployment. That when you can throw the bottom six on, you're able to solidify that defense and not really give up as much.
Yeah. As long as you can, it helps your matchups. Because
Yeah,
if you've got some grinders that we just mentioned in that bottom six, like with Amat and a Fisher, Raz, Cop. Like we saw Cop excel. Maybe that's the wrong word to use in a more sheltered role. Now, it still came back to bite us several times over because when we were talking about Danielson and the way that he will go hound at a puck, one of the things that kind of hurt Detroit quite a bit last season toward the end is guys like Cop not hounding the puck. We saw him get beat several times off a draw and kind of get puck watching and lose his man, which led to several big goals against. Those things, I get it. It's the season's a grind, but when it matters the most, we can't have that. So that's where it's like, man, we gotta if they can even itself out, we'll be in a good spot. But it can't happen in the big moments.
So I think we're going to go to break before getting to the final portion of the show tonight, which is kind of like roster construction and what might be on the horizon. What I do want to mention before we go to break, though, is to check out our Vintage Detroit t-shirt collection. If you're on YouTube and you see the t-shirt that Ryan is wearing, Showtime is back in Detroit.
Yeah,
We do
still
have our
relevant.
Showtime shirt up on the Vintage Detroit website. If you go to vintagedetroit.com and you click on the Keep It Local tab, there is a Grindline podcast collab tab that you can go to. There are 4 designs up there now, and the shirts are insanely comfortable. They
Damn.
fit really, really well. And yeah, so there's a Showtime one up there. There's a Mo Sider. There is an Iser Plan trade shirt. And there's one other one, an Alex DeBrinket shirt, the Brinksy 93 shirt up there. So go head over to Vintage Detroit. I will drop a link. Actually, I think the link is always in our YouTube videos, but you will see the pictures on the screen if you're on there. But go check those out. So we'll be back in a moment for a word from a couple of our sponsors. The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice. With same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more, don't miss out as the Stanley Cup playoffs wind down. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. And we're back. And I did the favorite thing again, Puckpedia. Huge shout out. They recently added us as people to follow on the Red Wings page, which is really cool. But they released their Be a GM mode, which I think blows Cap Friendly's Be a GM mode out of the water. It is visually appealing.
Crazy right there.
It's visually appealing. It shows you your free agents on the bottom that you can just hit sign and enter the term and hit go, and they pop right into your roster, which is fantastic. So I took a stab at this, and feel free to tear me apart because I know that's exactly what's going to happen on YouTube. People love to pick apart the Be a GM stuff. Right now, we're going to go forward core, we're going to go defense, we're going to go goaltending. My forwards, my top line right now, Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond. My second line, Tarasenko, Comfer, and Kane. My third line, Nate Danielson, Andrew Kopp, Jonathan Berggren. My fourth line is Rasmussen, Tyler Mott, Christian Fischer, and my extras, Joe Veleno. Currently. I think Nate breaks in. I think you could put him, I think Kopp is a good defensive center for someone like Nate Danielson. Nate Danielson also provides defense, so those two with a Berggren, I think, can make up for the two-way game that Berggren lacks. Mm-hmm. People are going to tell me that Tarasenko and Kane that's a slow combination out on the ice. I think Comfort can help make up for that. Someone had told me maybe Nate Danielson centers Tarasenko and Kane because he can fly, but I think that's too much responsibility right off the bat. But I do have Nate Danielson breaking in as a 3C currently, or a 3 left wing. I think that Rasmussen, Mott, and Fischer would be just as hard to play against as Rasmussen, Kopp, and Fischer. If not harder to play against, because like I said, Tyler Mott is a puck hound. The dude is relentless, and he's got a fantastic defensive game. And I think he might up his point totals because Rasmussen's been shown to score goals.
Yeah, that's tricky because Cop did help drive a lot of that offensive playmaking with that group. Because Fisher, he did have his moments. But I don't know if that'd be as I don't know. It can go either way.
I mean, you could even swap the two if you wanted to. You can make Mott your 3C and Cop your 4C.
Yeah.
But I like Cop
See, now you're running
centering
into
that
the
third line.
situation where you've got how much 5.6 million as your fourth line center. I don't
That's the
think so.
only thing I don't like because and it's not his fault he makes that much money. It doesn't look good. Now, the other half of it is that Joe Veleno filing for arbitration does open up a secondary buyout window. So there could be a buyout in the next I don't know when when the actual buyout period is. It has to be I think after the arbitration is done. There is a chance that someone else is bought out to free up another roster spot. Again, there's also a chance that Berggren is traded. But I don't think they signed Tyler Mott for Tyler Mott to be an extra because he is extremely effective defensively.
I mean, do you want to be paying Andrew Copp for 6 more years?
No, but I didn't want to pay Justin Havlickater for like 6 years either. So
I mean, it could work out because his annual cap hit would go from 5.6 to 1.19, 1.1 or 1.69, jumps up to 3 million and then back down for the remaining 3 years after his contract would have expired to 1.8 million.
so it's inconsequential at that point.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely opens the door if you're trying to make another trade this season, saving you 4.4 million in cap space, and with the cap most likely jumping another 5+ million next year, 4 to 5. I'll keep it safe. It becomes inconsequential. To your point.
And for the people that are saying you need to buy out Justin Holt, you can't. He doesn't make over $4 million.
Yeah, at this point, and that was an oops by me, but thankfully I didn't actually go off into my tirades about the buyouts. But the only guys you could consider a buyout at this point would be Huso, who makes 4.75, Andrew Kopp, and the rest are guys you wouldn't consider.
Yeah, people yell about JT Confer. JT Confer is actually a good player, so I don't know why people are yelling about buying him out. But like you said, Kopp and Huso are your only two choices. And Iserman in his post free agency press conference said that right now the plan is to go into the off season or into the season with three goalies, figure out which one takes the starter net, and go from there. So initially he said, we're not going to have three goalies. And he's like, well, we have three goalies.
I
So
know it's a little frustrating. I get it. I feel like the default in me is saying Cam Talbot is right now your unofficial number one, right?
yeah, I would agree.
Because have you heard anything back on what's going on with Alex Lyon's finger?
They said he'll be fine. He just had a laceration on his finger. He's
Right.
good now, I think.
Okay. I missed it, so I didn't know if there was anything in particular there. So
No, it didn't require surgery. It was just a cut. A skate blade hit him, I think, on the top of the finger at the World
right,
Championships.
stepped on.
He did not play anymore, but I assumed it was just stitched up and fine because they said it didn't require surgery and that he'd be ready to go.
Okay, so that's fine. Huso though still is terrifying. Like that is a wild card to me as far as is he going to be healthy? Can he bring what we saw from year one? Because if so, then you're in a great spot, but then you still have to make a move, in my opinion. Or you do keep three goalies, but we heard how difficult it was for Lalone to manage that. Thankfully, it worked out because Huso did go down. So it more or less forced Lyon into the spotlight, and he took it and ran with it, which was awesome. Now you've got three legitimate NHL level goaltenders. Again, I feel like something has to give. But that's just me. And I don't and Lyon might be your best trade chip, but I feel like it wouldn't make sense to disregard what his performance has been the last couple of years as well as his health.
Yeah, I think it comes down to you're trying to win more. And I think that Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon right now give you the best chance at winning more. Talbot can take, like, I think they could maybe evenly split down the middle their play time.
Mhm.
Like you could go 41-41 and they'd be fine. And you're going to end up getting a few more wins than you got last season because you were able to rest Lyon more.
Yeah.
So I think that Husso right now is the odd man out simply because we don't know what he's going to do post injury. We don't know if he's healthy enough to play. He could go into practice again and get hurt. I think I heard that he's not actually skating again yet, which is not great, right?
Not necessarily, because this is that time for the off-season training as it is, so I can see why, in a way. I don't know. I'm trying to justify it in my head, but it's not sounding as good.
So what would you change, if anything, about the lineup? The
On the
forward,
forward
the
side,
forward lineup.
I like the addition of Danielson because if you look at the roster as it is, which of course I clicked off of it, why wouldn't I click off of it?
Before you go, on the 21st of June, Iserman said that Huso will be ready for the start of the season. There's confidence in him there.
Eh, well, that's at least he can be confident. As far as the roster goes, I mean, I like what it looks like, but it's going to be tough because you need Burgers to step up in a big way. Yeah, Daniel Sprong, the way that he performed last season, that is going to be someone you absolutely have to replace. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of that can be replaced with a fully healthy Patrick Kane coming into a full season because we saw him just shy of a point per game as it was. If you've got Tarasenko to elevate a little bit, which we know it's there, that could be one way to do it. And you have to expect or hope that Lucas Raymond is at or above a point per game this season because Larkin's been on that cusp and we've been hammering that one for the last couple of years because he's that type of player that can do it. Now, if Raymond continues on his trajectory, that could be awesome. So that does make up for some of the losses that we touched on. But if you have Burgers coming in and gets a 40-point season, I think that's a huge get for you. So I like that one a lot. Mott, to me, definitely beats out of Joe Veleno. I wonder if maybe that's why Veleno went to arbitration because he's a little bit worried about what could happen in terms of his role. I don't think he's got a lot going for him at this point, so that makes it even more interesting. Maybe he wants some Rasmussen money. I don't think that's going to happen.
God, if you give Joe Valeno, after what he did, a $3.2 million contract, he has done nothing to earn that money,
No, I mean, go. He played some first line minutes though, Greg.
but doesn't play like a first. You get the minutes, but not the play style.
Yeah, but no, I mean, as far as the roster goes, if it's not a Danielson, you got to think it's going to be a Casper or Mazer. Maybe we're getting too focused on those three, but at this point in time, I'm okay with that. Give me one of them between your third and fourth line to learn the NHL to start making themselves at home. Because if it is a Danielson or a Casper in particular, you slot them in on the wing, you give them like you have it with an Andrew Kopp, could work out perfectly to rotate them in at center, get used to it, and then hopefully you see them making that jump up to the second line, whether it be on the wing or likely at the center spot, and kind of let you move your guys around to work your matchups in your favor.
Yeah, because I think even if you end up cycling Nate Danielson into that 2C late in the season, a third line of JT Compher, Andrew Kopp, Jonathan Berggren, fantastic. I'll take
Actually,
that all day.
you've got some great defensive play going
Yeah.
on there. Maybe great could be a loose term, but there's going to be some definite playmaking. I
And definite scoring. You could saw JT Compher score.
mhm. Yeah, and make passes. He's did at both sides of the puck, or I should say, both sides of the offensive spear. But Burgers, I've been wanting him to pop off for years. He's been so close. I hope this is the year that it finally happens. He gets a short term deal signed, and we see the Swede in him pop out and just do great things. I'm really still hopeful there because there's been so many guys on the cusp that have just haven't panned out, and I really don't want to see him be one of those guys.
Yeah, I don't think I want to see his Swede pop out, but I would like him to have a good season, Ryan. We're going to move on to the defense. I have a top defensive pair of Mo Seider and Ben Sherratt. It worked after Jake Wallman was removed from Mo Seider's wing. Ben Sherratt looked much better up there. Ben
Yep.
Sherratt as a whole had a lot better season last season. And I think you can go back into next season try that out and see how it works to start the season. Second pair, I have Simon Edvinsson and Eric Gustafsson. I'm pretty confident that Eric Gustafsson is going to start on the right side. They asked him jokingly in the press conference, have you played right? He goes, no, but I'm going to try. So I think that the expectation is probably for him to play with Simon Edvinsson, which is great because he's a solid defenseman. He provides some offense. And yeah, I mean, that's a guy that I think could do really, really well. Third, God, I actually swapped him up. Mo Seider I put on the left and not the right. It'll be Ben Sherratt on the left, Mo Seider on the right.
Yeah.
Third pair, I have Oli Mata and Jeff Petrie, and your extra is Justin Holl. That's what you got, guys. There's nothing you can do there. I mean, you can waive Justin Holl and you can send him to Grand Rapids and you can recoup like $1 million of his cap hit. I don't have the only reason I would do that is because you need a spot for Albert Johansson, who I don't have in here right now simply because there is no spot. So you either have to trade someone like Oli Mata, you need to find someone to just take Justin Holl, or you need to waive Justin Holl, put Jeff Petrie as your extra, and bring in Albert Johansson. Just right now, there's no room on the roster.
Idea.
Well, yeah, there's no room on the roster, and Johansson has to make it. He'd never pass through waivers.
No.
So
riddle me this. Jeff Petrie's contract with us is what, 2.3 million?
2.343741.
Is that the cap hit that we have to focus on for him? Because he's got a double retained salary. His actual cap hit is 6.25 million.
That's a really good question, and we need to ask someone much smarter than me what that is. Actually, that's probably a good question for Puckpedia. If we give them a shout out and say, hey, are we allowed to buy out Jeff Petrie because his actual contract, like his actual value is this, it's just being retained by two other teams? I don't know.
Doesn't. There's no way. It can't be that.
I would err on the side of probably not. But if it was a go, I would say that's your other option, but I feel like it's not. But I think the easier thing to do is waive Justin Holl at this point.
Yeah, it makes the most sense because I want to see a Johansson. It's
absolutely.
The fact that I don't care for Hall. I'm still upset that he didn't get more opportunity last season. But the way when we had Cocaine Bear Jeff Petrie last year, like he was either on and it was fantastic, or he was on downers and just completely gone. So there wasn't an in between. Johansson, I think, at least can give you something consistently night in and night out. And if you put him with someone like an Oli Mata, I think you can only be successful, especially if you're sheltering him on the third pair. Or if they're going to run with 7D and it's Johansson with Petrie and Mata rotating together, I think you can still do great with that too. And actually with Hall, I don't even think we can waive him, can we?
I don't think he has a no move. I think he just has a no trade.
Let's see. He has modified no trade, so he can be waived. Whereas Jeff Petrie cannot. He can only be bought out.
Yeah, so I think I would say that's probably the easiest way to do it. I think the word was that several calls were made about Justin Holl. There were no takers. I don't think Yzerman wants to give up another high draft pick in order to move him. So you waive him, you send him to Grand Rapids, you bring in a Albert Johansson. You put Albert Johansson on the right side of Oli Mata because Johansson has played. He is a left D, but he has played right. He played right with Simon Edvinsson. You make Jeff Petrie your extra. That's how I would want it to shake out. But right now, because Justin Holl is still on the roster, that's not the way I have it listed. The last thing we want to touch is goalie. Right now, I think this one's pretty easy. I think Cam Talbot is your starter unless he goes and breaks a hip in practice or training camp or whatever, and he's dead. I think if Cam Talbot dies, it's the only way he's not your starter. Alex Lyon, and I say starter loosely because I feel that's a really good platoon situation. Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon, where you could go day on, day off with them. Or you could do a couple on, one off, one on, couple off, like that. And it would be, I think they're going to get probably a a pretty close to even split. Cam Talbot played a lot of hockey last season.
I hope so. As far as the split, because we've seen Detroit goalies just get worn out the last couple of years,
Destroyed.
and it's what has destroyed. To use the same word, Huso. It helped kind of destroy Ryan.
Literally. It
Yeah,
literally destroyed Huso
we have crushed his soul at this
and
point.
his
So
body.
yeah, so it's I hope that's kind of what they'll use this year, simply for the fact that adds some potential longevity. But we've seen it time and time again already with Lalone. He rides the hot hand, and he especially is going to ride the hot hand. Getting if it comes late into the season, we already looked at it. We counted what 11 back to backs on the year with the one to close out the season. There's a gauntlet of games to close this year out. So you have to hope that they can platoon it and not lose anything in front of them. That's going to be key, meaning the effort and actual defensive play.
And your third goalie is Ville Husso. So we'll see how it happens. I don't think you can go into a season with three goalies, your third goalie making $4.75 million. Like, yeah. Unless he can't start, Yzerman says he'll be 100% good to go. Like I said, he could pop onto the ice and break an ankle and get off. Like, he hurt himself in practice and had to go back down. So if Ville Husso hurts himself again or he's not ready to go, I could see him also being an LTIR candidate. And you could throw him on there and you'll recoup some money that way to maybe shake some stuff up. Again, where I kind of want to end it tonight is it doesn't look done. Like,
No.
it looks like, especially on the goaltending situation and even on defense, it sounds like the Trouba, they're still trying to work with the Trouba thing, which
Yeah.
to do that, you would have to say, okay, Rangers, we're going to take your, what you consider a shitty contract in Trouba. We're going to have to give you back a shitty contract in like a Justin Holl. Like, can you take him?
Yeah, but then you're going to eat the whole $8 million.
But you're going to give them back $3 million.
I guess in that sense, it takes away the retention that was going to be
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
I
They
get
give up
that.
a roster spot.
But we're still stuck on the seemingly big fact that his wife, they're respecting what his wife's got going on with the medical field right now.
Which is a great personal decision. That's a terrible business decision. Like, you're running a business, then and you gave him certain clauses, and now you're saying, well, we're not going to enforce.
Yeah, but
and it makes sense. It makes you look like you're an organization for the players.
He's kind of already burned that bridge a bit.
They did with the whole Barclay Goodrow thing. Maybe they're trying to make up for it. They're trying to make up. They're saving face. But I think that is the only real. Or if someone tries to trade for Oli Mata, like, it doesn't look done. Like, still looks like there's work to be done on the defense, and still looks like they're gonna probably try some way to offload a goaltender. Because Steve can say as much as he wants, well, we're just going to go in with 3. He's a liar. And he lies right to our dumb faces. And we go, yeah, Steve, okay. And then he goes and does the opposite thing and goes and laughs in his kitchen. That's what he does.
Well, you also got to think, too, they could just, if they don't trade or buy out Husso, you could likely waive him and get away with it and send him down to Grand Rapids. But then you're rolling with Soup, Jack Campbell.
Yep. Kosa and Husso.
Kosa and Kusa, Kosa and Kusa.
Kosa.
So and Kosa. Now you're impeding Sebastian Kosa, and that is absolutely what this team and organization does not want to do.
I think you're impeding Jack Campbell, because I don't think there's any world where Sebastian Kosa is not the starter in Grand Rapids next season.
Sure, but you kind of see where I'm going with it. You know that he can learn still quite a bit from either guy. I don't think you can be indifferent for who he should probably be learning from. Who being Kosa. I don't know. It's another option. I don't know what the contract hit would be if he's sent down offhand, but because he's only got a modified no trade, so he's a 10-team no trade list as Husso. So, and who knows, that could be a tradable contract if they do retain on him and decide to move him out. So that's still not completely off the table. If you retain 50%, bring it up just over $2 million. That's a doable thing.
And that's a cheap goaltender who has shown before he's good when he's on. So I think that's where we leave it tonight. It looks like there's still work to do on the roster. I'm really liking the forward group right now. I think they improved the defense of the forward group. I think they improved the defense of the defense group because you
I
get a
hope
full
so.
season of Simon Edvinsson. And I think that's really going to help too. And I think if you pair him with an Eric Gustafsson, that again, that shores up the defense. You lose some offense by getting rid of Shane Gostisbehere, but you improve the defense by bringing in an Eric Gustafsson. So I think that's where we're going to leave it tonight, Ryan. I want your final thoughts before we sign off.
Final thoughts. We'll see what happens. Like you, you said it the best. It feels like with the way that things are structured, offensively and defensively, and the goalie situation, that something has to give. Maybe we all feel that way. I kind of do. I'd be really intrigued to your point and what we've been hearing, what a Jacob Trouba trade would look like. I would absolutely welcome him on this team. If it meant a Hall or a Petrie getting shipped out along with it, even better. I think that he would make this team better defensively.
Tougher.
Tougher for sure. And guess what? You don't have to play him top line minutes because right now that I shouldn't say that's what he was doing, but he still was in very difficult situations. You can float him between your second and third pair, and you're not. And but also he has one of the best slap shots in hockey. That would excite me tremendously because hey, if you had to fill in on your second power play unit, you can do that. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But you can almost shelter him, for a lack of better words, and that could probably benefit you greatly. As far as the rest of the roster goes, it's a long summer. We're a week and a half into free agency in the off season. Don't forget that Detroit or any team for that matter can be 10% over the cap going into the summer. They just have to be compliant by the time next season starts. So
Yep.
a lot of things can still happen. I mean, we still are waiting for the contracts between Sider and Raymond to come through. That's going to be a crazy sticking point because Detroit's at 19 million in cap space. So that's really going to dictate potentially or not what Veleno and Berggren signed for. So a lot of moving parts, but it's fun. They've shored up Grand Rapids. They've shored up some moves for Toledo. The organization's getting their thing, all their ducks in a row going into the next season. So it's fun to watch. Already ran 33.
The Tigers are actually good at playing baseball again. Maybe the Tigers just beat the Guardians 5-4. Andy Ibanez hit a pitch hit home run in the 8th to win the game for the Tigers. So
beautiful. I saw it was 5-4, but I didn't see. Was that the final?
Yeah, 5-4 final.
Oh yeah.
So my final thoughts are going to be, again, go check out our stuff at Vintage Detroit. It's up there. It's cool. They're also fixing jerseys for Lions people who bought jerseys and the names and numbers weren't stitched on the way they weren't stitched on. So they will do the stitching. I think they said you send it to them. It's like $50 and they'll letter and number your jersey for you. So go check out Vintage Detroit. You can catch them on Twitter or you can go to vintagedetroit.com. And again, you can ship them your stuff and they will ship it back to you, which is cool.
On the vintage note, kind of reached out to see what they're hearing as far as the new jerseys. They have no idea. So if you're trying to figure out what the Fanatics uniform or jerseys are going to look like, you may not actually see anything until you're at LCA.
Yeah, good old Fanatics and their absolute zero communication with the people who are going to be selling their stuff.
They're quote unquote in the dark right now, and it's possible they may not get anything in stock until November. I hope that's not going to be the case, but you're a month plus in and you're finally getting new stocked jerseys because they got their last stock in late March, April.
It was a while ago
of Adidas. So yeah, and I'm sure that stock is dwindling quickly.
Yep. So go get your Adidas stuff before it runs out. You can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You can follow Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. We like to give a shout out to the Hockey Podcast Network, which is the people that host us and they spread us around, and we love them for that. So thank you. Again, shouting out to Vintage Detroit, which is the only place you get your Detroit jerseys from and worked on. Go to YouTube, sub to us, turn on the notifications. You'll be notified every time an episode goes live, and you can see our stupid faces talk about hockey stuff. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockey Town.